It is time, though, for our Beltway Blitz. The Blitz today covering the Nationals, the NBA playoffs, and your Washington Commanders. Let's get it popping. We start off on the diamond. We'll be joined in moments by our buddy Pete Medhurst, who filled in on the call of Nationals baseball this weekend. But Danny, the Nats won 3 of 4 since our last show as a program on Friday. They took 2 of 3 from Seattle. Really good starts from Mackenzie Gore and Trevor Williams in the wins. And then yesterday, a rare explosion in the first inning. 4 runs for the Nats, fueled largely by Lane Thomas, who doubled 2 times, including in the first inning of the game. And another really good start from Mitchell Parker.
Just putting pressure on the team, right, to make a tough decision, even when Josiah Gray comes back, when Kate Cavalli joins the rotation later this summer. It's a good problem to have.
6 1/3 innings of 5-hit ball for Parker, and all 3 of the runs scored in the 7th. I mean, he was cruising through 6. Let's bring Pete onto the show now, as we mentioned. What do you make, Pete, of the way Mitchell Parker, the 24-year-old rookie lefty, has thrown the ball? He had a problem with walks in the minors. No walks yesterday. His walk rate's barely over 1 per 9. He's been incredible.
You know, Grant, I think sometimes, and Danny, you know this, baseball's a game of failure. And you learn from your failures. Some guys do. They progress through the ranks, eventually get to the big leagues. Those who don't usually don't get up to the big leagues. And I think part of that is what has aided Parker's improvement. And obviously, when you execute better pitches, you have a chance. I mean, look, let's face it. We have seen at times a lot of uncompetitive pitches over the last couple of seasons at different times during the year for this team. And if you're a guy that can come to the big leagues, make competitive pitches the way Parker has, but more importantly, and you know, you listen to Davey and Mike talk about this all the time, those who can do it consistently stay in the big leagues. And so far, so good. Parker has done that consistently, and at least in the short sample size of this season, he's been a blessing that I'm not even sure they were counting on, certainly at this point in his career, but he's a guy that's gotten an opportunity and so far has made the most of it.
Pete, CJ Abrams was so transcendent in April. Looked like an all-star, had 7 bombs, 7 steals, was hitting 300, OPS right around 1,000. May not too kind to him. I really think we maybe underestimated the impact Lane Thomas hitting behind him was probably having for him, even though Lane wasn't off to a great start average-wise. Just that presence in the lineup, I think, helped. Good to see CJ kind of get off the schneid a little bit with that bolt in a couple straight games. Now all of a sudden looks like he's locked in. What's the difference when he's going well and when he's not?
Well, I think the biggest thing, Danny, is, and we saw this a little bit even going back to the Twins series, the one difference in the series, Pablo Lopez makes a bunch of mistakes, and you capitalize on them. When guys make mistakes to you, when you're going well, you know this as a great hitter, you hit the ball all the time when things are going well. Well, he went so well for about a month and a half there. You know, the league now sees what's happening. Mm-hmm. They start to make adjustments. They pitch you differently. They pitch you in different locations. And, you know, as a young player in particular, when you're not going well, you start to reach places that you can't get with the bat. And I think it was one of the few times, certainly this season, that we saw him chasing areas and balls that he can't get to. So he played in, the pitcher's hands. Let's face it, you start playing well, the scouting report starts to come a little bit different. People are going to start to pitch you different. They see what you've been hitting and what you've been doing consistently. They're going to throw you something different. And I think that's what happened there for a little while. And he's still such a young player that, you know, him going through ups and downs the way he did, that's going to still happen, I believe, for a hitter like him. And, you know, the last couple of days, he's taken advantage of guys that have missed kind of middle in, thigh high. And he's done a great job turning on those balls because we know when pitchers make those kind of mistakes, he has the ability to turn on them and do that kind of damage. Is he ever going to be a 35 home run guy? Probably not. But he's got the ability that when enough guys make mistakes, he could be a 20-plus guy, I think, with his bat speed and what appears to be some better than average natural power for a guy that exudes a build that you wouldn't think has that kind of power. But it is. I mean, look, for that lineup to go, look, Danny, he hits one out yesterday. He's had a much better approach to the plate, and they score 8 runs yesterday. I mean, the guy at the top of your lineup and then getting Lane Thomas back behind him, it lengthens your lineup. And when you've got more professional hitters in that lineup, you get a more professional performance and approach by a lot more people in that lineup, i.e. of late, over the weekend at least, J. Barrett Ruiz.
Yeah, 8 for his last 11. Abrams, by the way, on pace for 27 home runs. One of 3 shortstops with Ellie De La Cruz and Bobby Witt Jr., who have at least 9 homers and 8 stolen bases this season in baseball. Pete, great job filling in on the call this weekend. Thanks for hopping aboard, man.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Be
See you,
good,
Pete.
buddy. There's our pal, Pete Medhurst. Let's talk hoops. Half of the NBA Finals matchup is set. Big voice guy said Wizards. And we'll get to the Wizards.
Sort of.
Maybe. They played the Celtics this year. There you go. There's your transition. Boston to the finals. Chase Hughes of Monumental Sports joins us now. How much pressure do you think is going to be on the Celtics? They'll be the favorites again. A couple of years ago, they were supposed to beat the Warriors in the finals, and then Tatum really got outplayed by Steph, and it didn't happen. Now they're going to be favorites over either Dallas, very likely, or Minnesota. Do you think they're going to be feeling the heat?
I do think there's going to be a good deal of pressure, probably for Jason Tatum more than anyone else. I think there's always going to be pressure for the Boston Celtics with their history and the passion for that team in that town. But Jason Tatum has gotten so close so many times. He's been to the finals once, but he's been to the conference finals countless times. He's had an incredible start to his career. But he has not won a ring. And so I think everyone's waiting for him to kind of get over the hump. And you look a little bit closer at the numbers and his performance in clutch situations. There have been times where he's come up short. I don't think that it says anything about him as a player in the bigger picture, because if you look at the history of the game, he's right on schedule. A lot of the best players of all time didn't really break through in the playoffs and win their first ring until they were 27, 28 years old. And that's right about what he is. So I think he'll get there. But certainly if it doesn't happen this year, then the questions are only going to get louder and louder about whether he can get the job done.
So Kristaps Porzingis didn't play in this Pacers series, and I thought maybe he would if it got extended, but they swept, so no reason to do that. But now there's, I think it's approximately, Chase, 14 months until the first NBA Finals game. Numbers are approximate. So you would think Porzingis would be in there. How does that change the dynamic for Boston? How do they kind of fold him in?
Well, yeah, it looks like game one would be June 6th. So it's pretty far away at this point. But certainly going up against a team like the Mavericks, so it looks like they would face, it would help to have size in the paint, to deter not only Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, but also one thing that the Mavs have been able to achieve is a pretty unique element playing above the rim with Derek Lively, who right now is hurt, assuming he'll be back for the finals. And also, of course, Daniel Gafford, who was traded to the Mavericks midseason. Those guys have proven to be great complementary pieces to Luka and Kyrie. And it could produce an interesting dynamic if you're a Wizards fan watching the finals, because if Porzingis is healthy and Gafford continues to play the way that he has, that could be a really important matchup that could help determine the series. But having the size of Porzingis just in the paint is going to be a huge deal against Dallas, because we're seeing what Luka and Kyrie can do late in games, especially. Anything that you can do to kind of put up a wall around the rim is going to help your cause. And without Porzingis, the Celtics lack in size at that position.
We are now about a month away from figuring out, what's next for the Wizards this offseason, where they go in the draft, where they go in free agency. What's your blueprint look like?
Well, first, they got to hire a head coach. I think that'll be before the draft. I think it should happen fairly soon here. But the blueprint.
Who do you think they hire? What are the names that you would throw out there?
Well, Brian Keefe is considered the favorite. If you talk to people around the league, people in those specific circles in terms of head coaching searches, a lot of people expect him to have a really good chance. I think the Wizards front office, even though not a whole lot of information has been out there, they've been doing their due diligence and talking to different people, but Keefe remains the favorite. But in terms of their blueprint, I really think it all depends on what the Hawks do on June 26th. Whatever the board looks like with the second overall pick, I think whatever the Wizards come away from that draft with is going to determine their path moving forward, because they're so early in their rebuild that they don't really have like positional needs that you would try to target. And whoever they draft second overall is going to be so important to their short-term and long-term future that I think it's going to dictate, all of their plans essentially in free agency and with trade. So I think all the veterans that they have on their roster like their roles moving forward are really contingent on what they do with that second overall pick. So I think it's kind of TBD in that regard because it's going to be such an important decision.
Chase, this front office, this regime, or at least Dawkins back in Oklahoma City, and I know other guys have kind of talked about this as well, they love positional size. Break that down for us. What does that mean in terms of how it might apply to the draft?
Yeah, so certainly height and wingspan, I think, would be factored into that equation. And I think what it does is, obviously positional size, if a guy is 2 or 3 inches taller than the average player's position, that's going to help their ceiling long term. But I think the approach is also rooted in it raises the player's floor. We've seen with guys sometimes that, they bring them, you bring them in. I've seen this happen with especially second round picks with the Wizards. And as soon as they get on the court, you can tell that they're a little bit small for their position, or they're a little bit slow, or they don't have the wingspan. If you're big and you have the wingspan, then you just start a little bit ahead of the game. And I think it helps players adapt early on because they get on an NBA court and they realize, look, I'm big enough. I can hang with these guys. And so I think it helps them, those types of prospects in the short term and the long term. And I think also specifically on the defensive end, just having length and being disruptive in passing lanes always helps. And so I think that's what the Wizards are looking for in their draft prospects.
Chase, thank you, buddy. We appreciate you.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime.
See you, bro.
All right, let's talk football. Earl Forcey's been getting you up to speed every 30 all day long. Earl, one of the things I heard you talking about football-wise was a potential change to the landscape of the offseason in the NFL, where they push the schedule around a little bit. What do you make of that if they get rid of OTAs and kind of a long 8 training camp?
Well, this is all part. I think it's all part of the give and take, guys, with the possibility now and probably a near possibility that Roger Goodell brought it up a couple weeks ago of the 18-game schedule that's likely coming soon to an NFL stadium near you. This is all going to be part of the process, right? To figure out, well, if we give you an 18th game, what are you giving us? The feeling on this from the NFLPA, according to the reporting, is they think that more time off in the spring and summer and getting back with more of a ramp up into the regular season, that's going to help with some injuries and going into the season, early season injuries that pop up. I guess, I don't know. I think there's also an opinion that the more work you do right before the season may lead to more, but apparently too, there's reporting after this that Albert Breer was saying today that GMs and coaches, the early reaction from them is not very positive. So there's going to be some pushback on it. This is all about eventually you do something for us, we'll do something for you. And, we'll do something for you from the players is we'll agree at some point, somehow, some way to an 18th game. And probably, that leads 18 games would lead to a second bye week. So, I mean, the NFL, the Super Bowl now is already, deep into February. We're talking about probably President's Day at some point very soon for the end of the NFL season.
Earl, most power rankings, this is early. Nobody knows all that much. We still haven't had the second round of free agency yet, and it's early in the calendar. Still has Washington, though, in the upper 20s, even 30s. Looking at NFL.com, ESPN, PFF, CBS, Fox. That's kind of where they're at. If that holds true, how patient are fans going to be?
That's a really good question, Danny, because I think with the rookie quarterback and probably playing right away from the get-go, there's going to be a little bit of a honeymoon with this. But, Dan Quinn is apparently and was not the first choice at coach. And this is a franchise that is, went into a death spiral at the end of last season. And for many of us, and I'll put myself in there, the longtime Washington football fans, I don't know how much of a honeymoon you get when there's been 3 decades plus of suck, basically. I mean, it's not just mediocrity, futility. So that's a really good question because I think fans are going to want immediate results. You're not going to make a Super Bowl run this year, but to push this thing again to 3, 4, and 5 year plans, I mean, that's just not the reality of pro football. And you've got a rookie quarterback that's going to be under at least a 4-year contract. It's a league where you can see immediate results. Look at Houston last year, different situations. They have a franchise left tackle and all that stuff. But the honeymoon period probably won't last long, but I would think that this season at least there'll be some patience, and it's all about guys. If the quarterback looks like a guy who is your franchise, put him on your back type of guy that this team really has not had over the time. Look, we can go back to the franchise history of quarterbacks. Some of the good ones, even, Sonny and Joe Theismann. This guy could be in a different level if he's as advertised. And so far, from what little we were able to see in training camp, but the reaction from everybody that sees him every minute of every day, it's been more than positive. It's been great. So that's going to help whatever the win and loss total is going to be. If that guy, Jayden Daniels, is the guy, there'll be a little bit more wiggle room, I think, as far as patience.
Our guy, Earl Forcey.
Can I give you a pancake take?
Let's go. Love a pancake take.
Peanut butter and jelly. That is my go-to.
Wow.
Forget the syrup. Load it with peanut butter and jelly. And the preference
Hard
is
to go wrong.
Smucker's preserves, red raspberry, seedless. It's the only thing I do. Now, I saw something on Twitter this week, and it was, or X, whatever. It was peanut butter and jelly on waffles. I've been doing that since I was a kid.
Yeah, who hasn't? Everyone's done that.
Peanut butter, skip the syrup. It's fine, but go peanut butter and jelly. And
I've never done that
it's delicious.
It's been a while since I've eaten pancakes, as you know. But wow, okay. I've heard peanut butter for sure. PB and J basically on a pancake.
Well, one of the pancakes, you can't get enough of them. I guarantee you that.